welcome everybody to the Spart Asch analysis podcast. Right now with us, it is me, Ash, and Spart along with me. And
I haven't seen you in like 2 years, dog.
yeah, it's been a while since our last episode.
A minute.
We are very excited to bring you some podcast action here. RBC preseason, a very exciting time for everything, really.
Oh yeah, the RBC Discord is finally, generating again. That the draft always brings fresh air into that Discord. People get talking again.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple different topics that we're going to go through so far today, or going to go through eventually today, and we're going to get to those once ARC comes on. But are there any topics that those of you in the chat would like us to discuss before we get to our main features for today? So news from Peyton, the Reaper's new uniform drops tonight, and I'm sure that's interesting to somebody out there.
Somebody, definitely not me. How about you?
Not particularly, no.
Yeah, nah, it's not that great. I'm actually more, bro. I think the game that we just saw, NAS versus AJC, is probably more exciting than this Reapers drop. Honestly, I'm probably gonna fall asleep.
Yeah, that was a pretty boring draft. Or a pretty boring game. My mistake.
Oh my goodness! I was in that game and I was suffering.
Real quick, we'll discuss the kind of the things going on with the Omaha tournament. So there's two sides. Side A is Montreal, Texas, and Unionport. Side B is New Alexandria, Las Vegas, and Amazon. So since the Spartans beat the Jungle Cats, the Spartans can clinch the number 1 seed with a win against the Rattlers, and Amazon needs to beat the Rattlers to get at least, or to get at best, the number 2 seed. In the side A, no games have happened yet. What you got for us, Chris?
Well, inside, I like what's going on in this year with the Omaha tournament. It gives us we get a couple games, get the rust off, after being gone for, so many months, or some players years maybe. So it gives us time, breathe fresh air into the RBC bones and those clicks and those fingers that we got to click to swing the freaking ball. And with these new rules, we got to get used to it. So these 2 games that were allotted are great. But side A, we got Montreal, we got Unionport, and we got the Reapers. Obviously, I think most people would agree that UPS is going to be the heavy favorite here, right? Yeah, coming off their World Series win twice, 2 times in a row, granted, that only a few other teams have done. So I look at the heavy favorites there, and it's basically, some people may think it's going to be a fight for second, but I don't think so. There's these other 2 teams might sneak up there, slowly. I think Texas Reapers has a very much capable team, upset this UPS side that everyone thinks might win again, but that Texas Reaper organization led by Payton, he has some boring uniforms. I think he does have some exciting play backing him, and as well as Montreal, JS, stepping into the owner's role. I'm not sure if it's his first time, but maybe first time in a while.
First time as an owner before the season starts. He was the owner of the Islanders, or not the Islanders. The New York. What were they called? Was it the
New York Skyliners?
That team? That's right. Yeah, them. He was one of the many owners of that team.
Yeah, that team was we'll get to that team later.
We'll ignore that. But welcome on ARC, who is our guest here today.
Welcome, buddy. But to finish off, Montreal, I think a surprise of hands. I think they did some pretty good picks in the draft. They got a really good core in Rock, and they got a really good head coach in Rock. And I think it may be even a surprise of team as well, especially on that side of the bracket.
Yeah. So we are gonna go through the draft from yesterday, and gentlemen, if you would please while we look through the draft and talk about it, please put your rankings for the draft in the group chat so that I can put it on the screen because I have a cool overlay for it. So
Cool overlay. Well, first let's just give a quick overview of just the first round.
Yeah.
As you all know, this year we had to not every team signed their 4 3-stars, so they were allotted what we called it, a
the compensatory round.
There you go, the compensatory round. So the first 5 picks were only 4 teams, two picks going to the same team, with Bag being the first pick of the Rattlers, who is no longer on that team. We'll get to that. Quinlet, going to Montreal. Drew Marks going to...
Quinlet was a good pick.
Quinlet, it was a good pick. I do agree with that. A sleeper pick, I think. Drew Marks, Naz, and Scripted taken Bearme, taken by the Reapers. Those were our compensatory players. And when the draft started, I think it started off well. Started off hot with the first actual pick of the draft being Ryan XVI. A name we haven't seen here for a while, but coming back finally. He's taken first off the board, and then you got Hey Joseph coming off from Montreal. Simply Cole taken by Naz. PKM Freak, another old general returning, who is now joining Ryan XVI and the Rattlers after the trade that happened today. We'll talk about that later. Detroit Red Wings fan, a.k.a. Coker build, taken by the AJC, and UPS's pick that they traded away last season was now taken by Naz, and they were able to select Base, and that was really it for the first couple rounds. If you want to say anything about the draft?
Nothing major. I think we should take a second and kind of grade each team. So, Ark, are you with us right now?
I am here. Yes, I am.
Cool. So how about we go through each team and we'll each give our individual grade for that team's draft. So, firstly, the Rattlers. So let's see who they got. They got Bag, who had a very, very poor season last season. And he's no longer on the team. But for the sake of this ranking, he will be considered from the Rattlers.
On the team, yes.
Ryan XVI, who hasn't played in a while. Zyron Red, who I don't believe has played before.
He's a rookie.
King Swift, OxyQN, Upbeat, X Perfect, and King Moneyball 7. I really don't see any. I mean, Ryan XVI is obviously a big name by default, just in his kind of legacy in the league. He has the Dinger Award named after him and all that, but he hasn't played in a long time, and I don't really see any dependable and like crazy good faces on this this list. Like, let's see, have any of them played in RBC? It's Zyron.
It looks like it's just Bag and Ryan who have played in the RBC. The rest are rookies. Oxy might have played.
Yeah, I believe Oxy's played off and on.
Yeah, because I know he was in RBAA Season 1. I think he went to play in RBC either last season or Season 10. But Zyron, King Swift, Upbeat, and King Moneyball, I'm pretty sure those are all brand new rookies.
Yeah, and I think, Caden coming into this, he said himself, he wasn't really, prepared. You didn't really know, who were the big names, who weren't. He kind of just, freeballed it almost. So, and I guess it came to show, because if you look at other teams, maybe a lot of other teams were able to pick up quite a couple pieces that, that slipped down in the draft that, could possibly went to the Rattlers.
Yeah, I'll say that the one person that I noticed, besides Bag and Ryan, I mean, those are great additions, but the one person that I noticed was Zyron. No one really knew who he was unless you went to the RBAA games, which not a whole lot of people went to, but, as commissioner, I came to some of the games, and Zyron was originally on my team. I believe I was on the Wildcats. But then he went to another team, and so I worked with him on batting and pitching. And honestly, I'm expecting him to be Rookie of the Year contention. To be honest,
Who?
Yeah,
Zyron Red.
Zyron Red.
No one knows his name right now, but give it a few series, people are gonna know his name. That's my bold prediction.
And I think that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say, and I think the Red Rattlers for best pick there in this round was definitely Ryan XVI for, the value that he brings. If just because, his potential, very high ceiling.
All right, so let's go ahead and give our grades for this first, or for the Rattlers. So Spart, what do you got?
So for this grade, sadly, I gave them a C-. I think they, even though they did have a really top-heavy draft, as in the first pick, possibly the second, I think that, a lot of other teams were able to draft a wide range of players at a better rate, at a better quality. Now I do think that at the end of the day, I think they still may be a contending team, but I just don't think Caden had such a great draft this year.
What do you think, Ark?
So for my grade, I'm gonna go ahead and give the Las Vegas Rattlers a C. Kind of same thing. So I mean, Bag, Ryan, good picks. Zyron, again, I believe he's an up and coming, but Caden's case was kind of hope the rookies can pan out. And as we've seen in the past from RBAA, not a lot of RBAA prospects have panned out. There's very, very few cases that have. So I'm not going to give it anything lower than a C just because I think he nailed his first 3 picks. But from that point on, relying on pure rookies, it's going to be tough for him to get anything higher than what I gave him right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with... I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to emphasize on that very few RBAA recruits, even in the very first season when RBAA was much bigger and a much bigger portion of the league, have had a major impact on the league as we know it now. So with that in mind, I'm also going to say Bag as a very first pick, when you have access to all of those guys, when you have access to Quinlet, Simply Cole, even Nubsy, Bag has experience, yes, but there are a lot of other people I would have gone with before him, just considering that Bag had such an awful season last season. Now, you could say that a lot of that came from the fact that he was on the Rock Creek Raccoons, but overall, I'm going to give this a D grade for draft, but I definitely think that if Ryan XVI and 1 or 2 of these rookies pan out, this could be a much better class for the Rattlers.
Agree.
All right, so let's move on to the draft for the Montreal Islanders.
So Montreal, starting off, they went with they did get a compensatory pick, and which they went with Quinlet, which I think 2 of the 3 people here agree was a really good pick, especially for the people that were drafted in that compensatory round. And I think that, and then next with their 7th pick, they went and got Hey Joseph, another named Swagmaster with 16, and even Foxconn in 19. So pretty solid, I think. Sadly, though, one of their players, Swagmaster, is not there anymore. He's left the Discord, but
I'm not sure why Swag left the Discord.
But hopefully he returns and maybe
Yeah, we're going to grade this draft as if Swag is still here. We're gonna grade the draft as if we are immediately after draft day.
Yeah. Of course.
But this is definitely one of the stronger drafts, especially that 6th round steal of Ryan that is probably the best pick in the whole draft. Getting
Yeah.
Ryan Priest at number 39. I'll go first since I went last time. I'm gonna give this a B+ draft. What do you think? What do you think, Chris?
I'm close to you. I gave it a B. Reason I gave it a B. Yes, I do agree. Quinlan is a great pick. Ryan Priest was such a steal. But the one thing I did want to critique is that I just don't know how. Again, similar to what the problem was with the other team, the Rattlers. We're not sure exactly how these rookies would show up, especially Wuppen, Hey Joseph, and even Aiden, because Aiden himself is very off and on. He's good at sometimes, and he's really not good at other times. So, and I think that's the only critique I have. Other than that, I think it was a really excellent draft there for Montreal.
Good thoughts, Ark?
Yeah, so I actually gave it the same grade as Ashley. I'm giving this a B+. Looking at every single player and just putting them side by side with each other, this is definitely one of the better draft classes compared to the rest of the team. So again, Quinlet, solid role player. That's what this draft is about. I mean, you're not looking for studs, you're looking for solid supporting players, and Quinlet has been known to be a very solid supporting player. Hey Joseph, in the RBAA, he was, I want to say, a top 3 rookie. So it was no surprise that he was the first rookie to be taken off the board. Only problem was he had a lot of toxicity reports, but he did start to kind of change. We'll see, though. Swagmaster, as you saw last season, he didn't go to a lot of games, but you know what? When he did show up, he was big time. Foxconn was on Unionport last season. He was decent. His fielding was where he was best at. His batting needs a little improvement, but again, supporting player. Now, Wuppen, another rookie. I trained him a bit. I talked to him, very active player, and was very interested in the league, so I have no doubts about him. I think he can be neck and neck with Hey Joseph. Aiden, I'm not going to lie. I tried getting in contact with Aiden. I don't even know if he's in the Discord. And same thing with Ryan Priest. Ryan might be in the Discord, but I've been trying to get in contact with him too. So it's kind of hard to see where they're at. But overall, pretty solid draft and excited for Montreal.
All right. Good thoughts there, Montreal. Thumbs up from all three of us, it looks like. So we'll move on now to 4-time RBC champions, the New Alexandria Spartans. They did have a compensatory pick as well. With the 3rd overall pick, they went with Drew Marks, then Simply Cole, Penworld, Dre Ralden, Deep Frying Ramen, 97 the Savage, and that was all from them.
And base.
Oh, and Basey. So, Ness, they went with the controversial figures, the old Charlotte regulars, and their old regulars. That seems to be their entire draft class, essentially. Pretty sure Drew Marks, Penworld, and
Dre, Rolden,
and Dre have all been on
and 97
before.
Savage.
And 97 Savage. Dre and Ramen are controversial figures, and then Basey and Simply Cole are Charlotte people.
Mm-hmm. I think Doug kind of went with this, if it ain't broke, they'll fix it. But yeah, I mean,
but the
way they were looking
last
year, I'm not sure if it was But I mean, looking at the one preseason game that just happened, really good attendance. Everyone was there, so hopefully, maybe he knew something beforehand. Maybe now his old tricks will now be, put to good use.
See, I definitely see where Doug is coming from with his draft here, but I think it definitely could have been better. I think it honestly would have been a good idea to kind of move away from some of the older New Alexandria regular types, especially the ones from last season, because that 3 and 13 just, yeah, no, not good. I'll start us off. I'm going to give this one a C-. It has a decent foundation. It has the ability to be a very good class, but it's very mediocre on the surface. What do you two have?
So I went ahead and gave this one a C plus. I think that, for the position they went in, I think they were able to, get a good amount of core for their team, even though, a couple of them might be returning players. I think, players like Deep Frying Ramen, formerly known as Flacco, Simply Cole and Base, who they added with their extra pick from UPS, even Drew Marks. I think they will come in handy with this group that put together, and even the three 1-stars that they end up getting. I think that they can put in some work, but I just don't think it's as good, like you said, as what they could have had. I think it was just an all right draft.
Yeah, they had a really big opportunity having that extra first-round pick, and Basie is a solid selection, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I could have seen Nass do better, but they did beat AJC today, so we'll discuss that later as well. All right, so looking down, halfway done now. Next up, Texas Reapers. Round 1, PK.
You missed Art.
What?
You just skipped
Art. Yeah, Art. What was your grade?
It was actually the same thing as Chris. I gave it a C plus. With Doug, you know what? Doug's been one of the best coaches, team owners throughout RBC history. I mean, he said it in the chat, I believe either today or yesterday, but he has coached and taught a lot of the big names throughout RBC, including me. He took the time to teach me one-on-one. So I think the names that were drafted by NAS is going to be kind of dependent on how much work Doug puts with each and one of them, because they all have potential. I mean, Simply Cole, every scrimmage that was hosted before the draft, I mean, he was killing it at the bat. And his fielding, I didn't really see anything with that. Penworld, always very reliable. He's active. Flacco, I mean, we all know in the past Flacco's been a little of a headache for sure. I mean, he's been exiled before, but with Flacco, I kind of noticed he's been less of a troll and more of a jokester. And to me, there's a difference.
Absolutely.
So, you know what? This team is going to be dependent on how much work they put in. But I think that Doug can make it work. So that's why I gave it a C+.
Cool. Now we'll move on to Texas.
Yes, sir.
Texas only was able to sign 1 3-star during the pre-signing period, so they had 2 picks in the compensatory round, and with that they picked Scripted Tank and Baramy. Now, these are interesting picks. Scripted Tank, I believe he was a rookie last season. He batted 279 in 46 ABs, so he actually had a pretty decent sample size. Not a very power-heavy guy. And then we look at Baramy. Now, Baramy is a very interesting person, and here's why. If we look back at Season 10, Baramy hit .447 for the Spartans and was also a solid pitcher. Season 11, Baramy's stats plummet, and he falls to a pretty paltry 200, or about a 200 batting line. So there's definitely upside for Baramy. Looking in round 1, PK, star outfielder, pretty below average fielder. Beartriz, another guy who had an up season and then a down season. Gulag for Daddy Stalin, Season 1 RBAA star, definitely has a high ceiling. Markinator, interesting. Paisano, a pretty good steal pick in round 5. And then Gunman 4466, who I will refrain from commenting on at this time. We'll start off with Arc this time.
Yeah, so looking at Texas's draft, I'm gonna give them the number 1 draft in the entire league. I'm giving them an A. Yeah, they nailed it right out of the park. Script the tank, very reliable player. Baramy, obviously, he was part of the home run derby. He was a 4-star last year. From what I remember, Baramy, I think he was just inactive. I mean, I know it was really hard, and I know Rockefeller could vouch for that. It was really hard to get into the games, which kind of led to the downfall of the Cincinnati Squadron last season. So if he could stay active as a 2-star, that's insane steal, insane value. PK, obviously, one of the greatest fielders, not of all time, but I'm saying like he's a really good fielder. Beatriz, last season he was with me on Uniport, and he was decent. Like he could get some at bats every now and then. His fielding was average, but he has potential. Gulag, I remember he was on Texas last season as well. He was okay. He was more of a fielder than anything else. Didn't really provide much on the batting, but I'm not sure how much he had trained at that point because I think he got signed mid-season. Markinator, very solid supporting player. Paisano, I've actually never seen him play, so I can't really even give a good judgment call. Gunman, is he going to take the league serious? But honestly, overall though, talent-wise, if it all works out and this group remains active, A plus, and number 1 in the league in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I think arguably this was the best draft. A lot of Texas was able to fill that void that they have, not having 3 stars with good players who have very high ceilings and who could, if played at their best, could reach those 3-star ratings that they would give. Like you said, people like Baramy, people like a Scripted Tank, and even that one Gulak Fidelis Stalin, who has a high ceiling as well. These players they're solid players if they are active, and if they can get working with Payton, I definitely think that this team could definitely be a team you can watch for. And not even to mention PKM Freak, who before was really a star coming on RBAA, and what, and like most older generators was a wizard in the outfield. Being able to both pitch and outfield, he was pretty much a complete player, even though he may have lacked on the batting side. So I do agree with you. This is probably the best draft in this year.
And what was the grade you gave?
I gave this an A minus.
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it an A minus. I would give it an A. This is an A, maybe even an A plus in terms of the skill of the players. My only concerns are activity and locker room vibes. Yep. Texas and Peyton's teams, no offense to him, have always seemed to have some sort of locker room problem. And that story is especially true last season. Texas had a lot of issues with toxicity and banding together as a team. And PK himself was a little problematic in Season 1 of RBAA. He's gotten better since then, but it's not completely unforeseen that could come back. And then Gunman, as you said, might not take everything seriously. But as a whole, very, very good picks from Peyton. If everyone's active, this could turn out to be a very, very good result from his misfortune in the signing period. So, second to last on the list, the Amazon Jungle Cats. Let's look through their picks. Detroit Red Wings fan, Thomas Hawk, Nubsy, Andes, Brian Cruz, and J.S. Got Game.
Andy's otherwise known as Maximus Phenom, I believe, correct?
I think so. But we saw Andy's playing a good center field today, pretty sure, during the...
Yeah, before he had to leave.
Yeah, during the game.
Yeah,
and
I think...
Nubsy is good if he takes it seriously, same as Gunman. Brian Cruz was a good pick for 34th overall. Brian Cruz in my opinion, is pretty underrated. I mean, he batted .237 in 51 plate appearances, but that was for one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that team was a 3-man team with him rocking I forgot who, but it was him rocking Cool Sports.
Yeah.
Literally those three ran that team, and having a rookie step to that spot is kind of hard. So definitely underrated.
Yeah, I would say Brian Cruz is underrated, but as a whole, I think this draft is just above average, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Spar, what grade do you have for this draft?
For this draft, I gave AJC just a little bit below Montreal. I give it a B minus.
Okay.
I think AJC was able to do what they could with the spots that they had, because just like the UPS Suns, I think they weren't able to get a lot of the players because their first picks were 11 and 12, and a lot of the good players were gone by the time or most of the top players were good by the time that time rolled around. So for what they were able to get, I think it was a pretty solid draft for them. I think a controversial pick such as Thomas Hawk and that so early was maybe a controversial pick, but hopefully he turns out. And I think they had an excellent pick, in getting Brian Cruz so late. And I just think that maybe with a little bit of time and a little bit of work in that locker room, I think this team maybe one to look out for.
See, I get what you're saying, but I'm actually going to give AJC a C for their grade. Just because if you look at where they made their picks, I mean, obviously you're at a disadvantage because your first pick is number 10 overall. But Coker build, I wouldn't draft Coker build until the third round at the very earliest. Coker didn't have any stats in season 11 unless he had a different name than the one I'm looking for. And in season 10, he went 4 for 18 before being cut. So that is not somebody that I would go with, especially when players like, I mean, even Wow, Beatriz, Swagmaster, even though he's not going to be able to play, there are a lot of players I would have gone with over Coker for that first pick, and a first pick really sets the tone for your whole draft. What do you think, Ark?
So for me, I gave this draft a C plus. I think there was definitely very value picks that was taken, like Noobsy or Nubsy, however you want to pronounce it, and Brian Cruz. I think those were very solid late round steals for sure. As far as Thomas Hawk, I can't even remember when he was playing when he was Central Alert, because I know that was his old username, because he played for, I want to say, Rock Creek, the Raccoons last season, and I don't really know. Yeah. So I gave it a C plus because there was value picks that were definitely there, and as far as the other players, Coker, Thomas, Andy's, JS got game. I think again, if they put in the work, they can definitely be better. But at the same time, I don't know too much about those players because I haven't seen or heard of them in a while. So it's kind of hard for me to give a fair valuation on them. So we'll just kind of have to wait to see till the season pans out, and then we can look back at this and see what it really was.
Yeah, so solid picks for those teams. Now we'll move on to the final team who didn't have their first pick until round 2, pick number 12 overall. This is the Unionport Suns. Wow 05, Glock Goodin, excuse me, Star, You Found DTS, Just Minion, and Ace 07. So let's break this down a little bit. So Wow 05 was an amazing player in season 6 for the Charlotte Bandits. Cy Young contender before he got banned from the league for which are still controversial reasons. but since then he hasn't really been able to find that same power that he had back then. Then also looking later, Glock Goodin. Who is Glock Goodin?
Glock Goodin is another rookie from the RBAA. The reason why I was comfortable taking him as my second overall pick was purely based on the relationship he had with Tough Stuff. Tough Stuff gave a vouch for him. I didn't particularly see him play a whole lot in the RBAA, but I know he did. I trusted Tough, my head coach, and we made the call and we went ahead and drafted him.
Okay, so a rookie with promise, hopefully, for the Suns. We've also got Star, You Found, Minion, Ace. So let's look at a couple of these guys. Looking at Minion didn't come much last season, but he was on the Suns. Solid player, a good pick, especially in round 6. The Suns definitely had big steals. Ace 07, even though he's not on the team anymore, was a very good pick for the last pick. He is constrained to be a mobile player, but he's still better than a lot of PC players last season with a 260 line, with a very low K or a pretty decent K percentage as well. I would give, considering they didn't have their first pick until number 12, the only thing that I'm really questioning is the choice of Star.
So, as far as Star, he was on Unionport last season. And actually, when he first got drafted in season 10 as the number 1 overall pick, I mean, we all seen it. We all heard it. He couldn't bat to save his life. His RBAA skills did not translate whatsoever to the RBC. And so New Alexandria, they released him. And as the team owner of Unionport, we had an open spot. And I figured, why not? Because I knew he had excellent fielding ability. So I said, you know what, why not? Let's give him a chance. And he still didn't really hit that well in that season, even throughout the postseason. But you know why? He was just a good addition to the team. So come last season 11, signed him again. This time I was able to help him a little bit more with his batting. And his biggest clutch moment was game 1 of the Metro League Championship Series against Texas. We had 1 out. Tough Stuff was on second. And somebody, 63, had just struck out. And I know there was controversy as of should Unionport have pinch hittered for Star, but I had enough trust and confidence in him, and he ended up hitting the tying home run, which we then won that game. So his hitting has improved, and he still is a great fielder. So that's why I felt comfortable, because he's already part of our program. He's seen it. He knows the guys. That's why I felt comfortable taking Star as my 3rd overall.
All right. So, Spart, we'll start off with you. What ranking would you give this draft?
Like I said before, I think just like AGC, UPS fell into the trap of being so late, especially losing that first round pick, which they had from last season. And, they possibly could have made some better picks, but overall, I think what they had, I think they did all right. So I'll probably give this a C plus, maybe a B minus, but I'll probably stick with a C plus. It's hard to tell, how certain players would turn out, specifically being Star, and AASC, who's not even on the team anymore. But I think they got good players in Minion and WoW who are valuable. WoW, not even playing as well as he has been in the past, but still a Cy Young candidate. In the past, he obviously has the potential to do things like that. And with the two players they got, two of the rookies they got, I think those were pretty solid picks for rookies. But overall, I don't think it was not big names. They weren't quality names like you saw from Texas. But I'll still give it a C plus. Pretty all right draft for what they did.
Cool. I hear a lot of what you're saying. I'm gonna also give this a C plus. I definitely do feel the B minus, but C plus I think is appropriate here. You found DTS, old gen talent. He's got a lot of outfield skill as well. Definitely one of the bigger steals of the draft. Same as Just Minion. Those last two picks, or third to last and second to last picks, were very, very good steal wise for the Suns. And I would say C plus, B minus, especially considering the circumstances that they were in before, or they were in going into the draft. What you got, Ark?
Yeah, I would say B minus, C plus is pretty much very fair. I mean, again, Glock, DTS, rookies. You gotta see how much value they can bring. Star, I know we've seen his past. It's really dependent on if Kenny continues hitting. Just Minion, I think it was more of his like toxic traits that he brought along to the locker room last year, which I think that's why he was drafted so late. But he, in my opinion, was one of the top 2 stars. So there's that. And then Ace, you know what? Like, I know he's a mobile player, but as a mobile player, let me tell you, he was better than a good portion amount of the rookies and probably even some 1 stars as a hitter and a fielder. He's been a mobile player for a long time, so obviously he's been working at it. And you know what? He's pretty decent for being a mobile player. So I had no problem taking him. Wow05, I felt he was just the best overall talent. It's just a matter of trying to get the best out of him from the past. You know, he's like one of those older players. You're just trying to milk any type of talent and ability you can out of him, pretty much. So we'll work on him, but yeah, C plus, B minus is definitely fair to say.
All right. So that'll wrap up our draft category. Now let's get to our preseason power rankings. Now these are with the rosters as they are right now, which include the couple trades that have occurred since the draft. So,
But before we do the rankings, let's just going to mention those trades that have happened already, so everyone is aware of those. So, one of the probably the most controversial trade that happened was first trade that ever happened was ASE being traded for Bag to the Suns, which is very controversial. In fact, I know the board even had to talk about it because they didn't know if they decided that was considered team dumping or not, or how they wanted to see that, but they allowed it through and it happened. So Juan's now in the Suns, and ASC is now on the Rocket. The what again? Sorry, I keep forgetting their name.
The Rattlers.
Rattlers. See, you said Raccoons too. And then with the second trade of this season, 22 fan and Upbeat Recon landed on Texas in trade for PKM Freak and Gunman. Overall, I think maybe a pretty solid trade.
That's a good trade for the Rattlers.
For the Rattlers, for sure. They get the chemistry and Ryan and PKM together.
Yeah.
And I think Peyton gets the 3-star that he missed. So
I think that trade that you just mentioned, it makes it very obvious who our bottom 2 teams are. And I would say, in my personal ranking, I'm going to have the Islanders at number 6 and the Rattlers at number 5. So my explanation with that is that if you look at all of the other teams, even including Las Vegas, you have, like, look, hold on, let me pull it up. So you have, like, AJC, Parker, TJ, Spartan, Carm, Las Vegas, Somebody 63, Caden, Broken. Texas, you've got Peyton, Aqua, Crazy Time Man, Nass, SJ Perkins, Doug, Bixlow, Matt, NLJ. Montreal just has Rock and JS. Kicker is a long shot. Rainbow Six God also is a long shot. Finn is alright. Quinn is a solid role player, but people are going to have to take a big step up from what they've done in the past, and I'm not sure if I if I believe that's going to happen, more likely than Ryan and PK having solid chemistry throughout the season. What are you thinking about the bottom two, you guys?
I agree with Montreal being the bottom. I think that, it seems like it's almost like Cincinnati all over. I want to say like Cincinnati all over again, where it's like, it's these two guys feeling like they have to carry most of the weight for this team, even though, I feel like everyone else below are good role players. Like you just said, compared to other teams where they have former stars, current stars listed for their top 4 or 5 players, we have Rock and JS. And just like you said, I'm pretty much reiterating what you said, and I think that's why they're number 6.
Yeah. I pretty much, I think we're all in agreement. I also have the Montreal Islanders as the 6th team out of the 6 teams that we actually have. You know what? They don't have any names. They don't. I think that's what you guys were pretty much trying to say. There's not a name that flashes out to you like, oh man, like that's a solid, whether it's in the past or current day.
I would say Rock is a big name, and he made a name for himself last
season. Yeah.
But he and Turner alone is the thing that's going on.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. And I think that's what we're all saying here. Everyone else, it's like you have at least a couple guys, more than a couple guys, whereas Montreal, it looks like Rock and JS are pretty much going to have to do most of the carrying because let's not forget, I mean, Rainbow Six God, he was a 2-star, but, with my retirement, he got moved to a 3-star, due to me leaving, so it's going to be tough, but Rock was the MVP. Let's not forget that he did play his ass off. And I don't know if this is JS's first time as a team owner. I don't really remember him much as a team owner if he has been. But it's going to be very reliant on them. They're going to have to carry the load. But I'm very much in agreement that they are last on my list right now.
What are you guys thinking for number 5?
I do also agree with Texas. I think they're falling to a similar role as.
Do you mean Texas or Vegas?
Texas. Didn't you say Texas was 5?
I said Vegas at 5.
Oh, you said Vegas. Oh, hold up. My bad. I got my teams switched. I'm so sorry. Yes, I think Vegas. My Vegas, I think, is the number 5 team. Sorry, they fall into a similar spot as Montreal, but the only reason I think, again, I think they are better than Montreal is simply because of Ryan and PKM, and if they definitely show, I think that their rating can go from 5 to even 3 to even 2. It really depends on big question marks of Ryan and PKM.
Yeah.
Not shading anyone else, like, somebody who's a really good player. Right, guys, really good, solid player. Caden, so he was off last year, but in the past, solid player. Broken, didn't show much last season, but again, former solid player. So we just have to see.
Yeah, and the thing that with Las Vegas that I'm not liking is that there's a lot of things that have to go right. Broken has to be active and he has to be good. Caden has to be active and he has to be good. Rye Guy and somebody have to continue their pace on clips that people didn't really expect them to get last season, and they're inexperienced and they're on a team with less I would say less acclaimed leadership. Not to say Caden's not a good leader, but less acclaimed leadership than they experienced last season. So it'll definitely this could be a very competitive team if everything goes right, but if only a couple things go wrong, they'll find themselves falling 4, 5, or even 6. What do you think, Ark?
I think it's pretty tough. Because with Las Vegas, I believe they have a very high ceiling, but they could also have a very low floor, and it's pretty much what you guys said. It really depends on activity. Broken didn't really show to a lot of games last year. Caden he's rusty. Like, let's be honest. Somebody in Rye Guy though, both won Rookie of the Year in their respective conferences. 2-2 fan, again, another inactive player. But I know with Ryan and PK, I know they wanted to play with each other.
Yeah. Stars the limit.
Yeah, I know they wanted to play with each other. And there's been this stereotype that has been true sometimes and hasn't been true sometimes, but old geners like to play with old geners, especially if they're friends, right? Well, I very well much know that they wanted to play together on the same team. And with that being said, I have no doubt that they're going to be active and they're going to be at the games. But again, there's Oxycon, Upbeat, King Swift, King Money. I don't even know if those guys are still around.
Foxconn is, but I'm not sure about the other ones.
No, not Foxconn, Oxy.
Oh, OxyQ, sorry. I thought you said Foxconn. My bad. I'm tripping.
No, Foxconn's on Montreal.
He's in Montreal.
But very high ceiling, but also very low floor. So, yeah, I think 5th place is best suited for them.
All right. So now we get to the middle of the pack, and the game today between NAS and AJC kind of raised some questions. Because when I saw the signings that the Jungle Cats made, my first thought was that, dang, I hope those guys get back to what they once were. Specifically, TJ and Chris. TJ and Chris have been top 5 players before in their career. Admin Rios has been a top 3 player in his career. Parker typically is a very good player. But just like Las Vegas, they need everything to go their way. It's not as bad as Las Vegas because there's really no activity question for the most part. No major activity question. But we saw their draft was solid. It was anywhere from a B- to a C+, depending on who you ask, or a B- to a C in this room. And it's just, I'm not sure about this team. We'll have a better idea once the tournament finishes up and everyone shakes the rust off. But during that game today, everyone was rusty. That goes for both sides, including the Spartans. And the same thing goes for the Spartans. Perkins had an amazing end of season last year for the Bandits, but Doug and Bixlow haven't been crazy good in a couple seasons. NLJ hasn't been crazy good since season 10. Matt hasn't been crazy good in a while either. So these 2 teams are in a surprisingly similar situation. They've got a lot of big names, a lot of expectation. They just need to get back on the track that they were before. What do you guys think?
So for me, I wasn't even considering New Alexandria or Amazon for like 4th. I was actually considering Texas for my 4th spot. I didn't get a chance to watch that game between Amazon and New Alexandria, but based off, the final score, extra innings, a home run, game-winning run, it sounded like it was pretty good, but I can see how it could be very much rust at the same time. But for me, in my 4th spot, I got Texas. Baramy, I spoke to him. Very talented, but activity was... when I talked to him before the draft, activity was going to be his number 1 problem. So I can't even really... I don't know how much he's going to play. Paisano, I never seen him play. He's a 1-star. It's just... there are 4 stars, which is Aqua and Noku. Noku's a great batter, great fielder as well, but he's also on the young side, and as we've seen in the past, we got younger players who become emotional, and there was many in-game fights between Noku and Peyton last year. And as far as Aqua, I don't know if I really viewed him as a 4-star. I kind of saw him as a 3-star, to be honest. Right now I have New Alexandria and Amazon better than Texas, so Texas is my 4th spot.
I would have to somewhat agree with what Art just said. When I went into making these power rankings, I'm thinking I'm not considering what the game that just happened in hand. I'm really not considering any of the Omaha tournament in hand until after we do the post Omaha rankings. But pre games, I just think there's a couple sore spots missing in their game. We got Crazy Time, who's been off and on in activity. Jeremy, like he said, was off and on in activity. And on bench who, again, is a good player, but is he really 4-star material? That's the thing. Aqua, I can see him be a 4-star, sure, but maybe there's a couple places where, maybe they might look better on paper than they actually perform. And I just think there's also might be a couple holes missing in that organization, like maybe get some more pitching or things like that. But I think that they are our 4th-ranked team in RBC.
Yeah, I really get what you guys are saying, and now I'm looking at Texas and the players that they have. Crazy has had activity problems for the past 3 seasons, and I think somebody said that he assumed, or that he said that he was going to be active this season, but that's what he said in the past, and it hasn't necessarily been the case. And Aqua's a strong player, but I don't know if he's ready to lead a team. And I would say Texas, NAS, and Amazon are in pretty similar situations. But if I had to make a determination based on what I think which team would have the better culture, I would say Texas probably has the worst of the 3. And I think with that in mind, Texas has to be number 4.
So far, we're pretty much all in agreement.
Yeah.
Montreal 6th, Las Vegas 5th, Texas 4th, which leaves New Alexandria, Amazon, and Unionport.
Yeah.
I can hit out this one for number 3. For number 3, I know you're supposed to, believe in your team, and you're supposed to support your team to the fullest, but I have AJC at number 3. Overall, I think they're a really good team when, 1, they all show, 2, and they all perform to the best of their abilities. I think they could easily be the number 1 team in the league. But we have great spots. We have Parker, who again is a good player, but at the same time, activity. We're not sure how he's going to be active. TJ, we already know he's in the military. We know he's everywhere, so we don't know about his activity. We got a special 3-star in Carmen who's limited to how many games he could play, and even then, he's not very much of a batter as he is just a ace pitcher and a pretty solid fielder. And again, like Ash said previously, we have me and TJ. We have to shake off this rust because we haven't played well in the past maybe season or 2. So I think that again, we'll have to watch the tournament and we'll have to see how these players progress within the next couple of weeks. But I just think I see enough right now. It definitely may change in the future, but I don't see it right now to put him up higher than 3.
All right.
So,
what do you think, Mark? I'm curious what your mindset is on this.
Yeah, it's tough. It's so tough. Going into this season, I already knew that the number 1 factor was going to be activity. I mean, we're doing this during a school season. Even if we started on winter break's only 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks for people. That's only going to give you so much. So I knew players being active was going to be the number 1 thing to look for, not just talent. So it's hard to judge both New Alexandria and Amazon, but if I had to give 3rd place, I would give it to New Alexandria. I think Amazon has the slight edge over them. To me, the 4 main players that New Alexandria has with them is S.J. Perkins, who I believe is very underrated. I know he's a 5-star, but I think he has serious potential. Doug, Matt, and NLJ. I think those are the top 4 players for sure. As far as the rest of the roster, it's like what I said with the draft rankings. It's going to be dependent on how much Doug puts into one-on-one or even team practices. But like Dre Roldan, 97 Savage, it's just really going to depend on those guys. Whereas Amazon, I believe, is more established. It's more of shaking off the rust to me. I just have to give it to New Alexandria for third. They're very close. I know they beat Amazon today, but I think Amazon's more established, more experienced, and they're going to come together and they're going to figure it out.
That preface what I said with, I think that on any given day, I think throughout the whole season, I think 1 through 3 will change often, depending on the week, and I really do think that simply because they're all well-rounded teams in some aspect.
Absolutely. All right, so my final choice on number 3 is I agree with what Ark was saying. I think the Spartans are going to end up being number 3. Their draft was, in my eyes, slightly worse than the Jungle Cats, despite better picks at their disposal. Perkins as a star player is an amazing player to have, and we saw that with the Bandits World Series run last season. But Doug needs to get himself back to relevance, both as a coach and a player, and he's already started work, so he's not going to have the same amount of time and energy he did in the past. Bixlow, as we saw today, has had a rude awakening with the umping policies of today in RBC, and he was ejected in like the second inning of his first game back. Matt and NLJ are strong players, skill-wise for the most part, but that's not guaranteed. Last season, they didn't perform to the way that we usually see them. NLJ hit 350, Matt hit 300, which is about slightly above and slightly below average, respectively. And as a whole, I think NAS has a lot more to lose, considering that they are an established franchise and had a bad season. They need to get back up top desperately. And if they don't, I think that could spell some very bad things for the New Alexandria franchise as a whole. But I think AJC has enough of a leadership stronghold. Like, 4 of the players on their roster have owned an RBC team in the last 4 seasons. That's a lot of leadership, and I must add, all 4 of those teams have been at least competitive to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even if players aren't there, the presence of those leaders, in lieu of even the team owner Parker, will be enough to rally the players who are there to fill in the gap. And while we did see NAS come out on top today, I think long run, AJC is going to be better. So, who is everyone's pick for number 1?
Oh, well, I mean, I think we all.
I don't think it's a question, do we? I feel like for any team that comes off, back-to-back titles, what would you not put them number 1? The Bucks are were considered number 1 after they won their championship. So I think it's only right to keep, UPS number 1. Even though they lost Los, they filled it with maybe even a better replacement in Ashlimmer. No flame to Los, but Ashlimmer has had this franchise for forever, and yet he may be a special 3-star. Only with his knowledge, only with his skills, and with his tech savviness. He's a package. I think any team would die to have Ash on their team. And to add him in replacement of Los leaving and retiring, it's a well played move by them. Not even that, getting Hyro, who was a former Charlotte, even their core strong with Beal, who had played pretty well last season, tough and obvious move there. Nathan Nader, who was also a Charlotte. It literally seems like you took the 2 best teams from last season and put them on one team. This is literally what this is.
The only person really missing is Perkins.
And literally.
If Perkins was a 4-star and you replace Beal with Perkins, I think this would be an unstoppable team, just straight up. But Beal is a spectacular player. Obviously, some slight character issues from time to time. But as a whole, tough stuff, Hyro, and Aubert as an outfield alone is terrifying for a batter to
Mhm.
do.
I think the only flaw that they may have is pitching, but
Yeah.
their outfield is so
Definitely.
good. Their outfield is so good that it's like, who the hell needs pitching? Because when Aston shows, he's pretty much going to put a shutout. Bill's above average pitcher, but then who are you going to put after that? I think that's the only thing that might kill this team, and in a game where, Ash can't pitch and Bill already pitched, who's going to step up in that pitching role, to provide that? Los was that person last year. Then they could just redo everything all over again. But with this and Ash being a special 3-star, it's kind of hard, but we'll see. But I still think overall they're the best team. I think if you put every lineup next to each other, all best players playing in one game, UPS wins 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah, when it came to how I wanted to gather this roster, especially when free agency opened up, I didn't say it during the World Series last season, but I looked at the Charlotte Bandits, and I remember me and Ashlyn we were talking in general, talking about, almost every team has a toxic player. And then he was like, well, what about mine? And I really thought about it, and I was like, dude, I can't name a player from Charlotte that I saw that was toxic, So I was really inspired by that team. I liked how they worked together. And so that was it wasn't the goal to combine those teams, but that's pretty much what ended up happening. Because returning players that I have is Tough, Aubert, Minion, and Star. I'm here, but I'm not playing, And as far as Charlotte, it's Hyro, Ash Lemmer, Nathanator, and then Wow used to be on Charlotte, but he wasn't on last season.
Yeah, it's almost like you took the core of this salad, right? You took out a piece, a couple pieces, and then you take this, another salad that's really, really good, and you just throw them together and make this, complete team, which is what I think they have.
Yeah, and you know what? For Beal Burner or Frito, I mean, same person. He won Cy Young. He was one of the best pitchers in the entire league, So, and I believe S.J. Perkins won Cy Young for his conference as well. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he won it. But
no, it was. Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, so I mean, I know SJ would have been awesome, but at the same time, Frito is just as impactful. And let's not forget, like SJ, he was a 4-star, but then got bumped to a 5th-star because of my retirement. So especially in our rookies, DTS and Glock, they're PBLers, and they have established relationships with Tough and Aubert. And I know with good practice, I can get them to hitting, because that's almost every old gender's problem. Not even just old genders, most players, hitting is the number one problem. And I feel that I have confidence that I can train these guys up. But yeah, I'm excited. But it's like what I said. These rankings do not matter if players are active.
They do not. And just quickly before we start wrapping this up, I think the only reason I put Nas above AJC is, I don't know if I'm crazy, because the definition does say doing the same thing and expect different results is the definition of crazy. Call me crazy, but I don't know. Picking the same player, same core again, get them together, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those snowball effects where it's just keep them the same and you keep training them, and I just think it may just turn out to be good, and that's what I might see out of this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a couple more things to talk about before we wrap up here.
Just shortly, yeah.
Just break down real quick. We got a game tomorrow. Texas at Unionport. Or no. Sorry, Texas at Montreal at Texas. I'm sorry. Tomorrow night for the first round robin game of Side A, and I think that's a big game for both of these teams. Even preseason is all about momentum and statements, because the games don't actually count towards your playoff push, towards your standings. But Texas, we all agreed Texas had a great draft, and we all agreed Montreal did too. This is really kind of a game to see which of these teams has the leadership that will actually work in a game situation. Because we've seen Peyton as a leader in a game situation, and when he has toxic players, he has a lot of trouble maintaining a good culture during games. Tornado hasn't owned since the New York Skyliners, which were a abhorrent failure. And this game is kind of going to be a battle between these two teams to kind of see who is on the rise and who is kind of falling out of grace even early in this season. And the important thing to note is, since this is a round robin for your side of the bracket, you will almost definitely play this team again. So this will be an important game for both of these teams.
If I had to put money on it, which betting it, I sometimes I'll call myself a betting man. I think I have to go with Texas here, man. What about you guys?
I don't know. It depends. If Rock is as hot as he was last season, I think Montreal's got a really good chance. But we won't know until we get to the game.
That's true. We were wrong. Our guesses were wrong about the first game.
That's absolutely true. Real quick, put in chat, would you guys be interested in a sports betting service for RBC run by yours truly? Would that be something you would want to participate in? No,
Spart Asch
not US dollars,
betting.
of course, but
No,
just something to do for fun.
I like you.
Somebody left after hearing that.
I think like 30 people left after hearing that. we'll talk.
We'll discuss that another time.
Yeah, me and Ash will talk about that more.
Bag says hell yeah.
We got 3
Jonas
yeses.
says yes. Upbeat says yes. So that'll be something I look into. So one smaller thing, gentlemen. Yes, some up.
While he's gone, let's go ahead and talk. So Los, my guy, a nigga. How are you doing, man? Yeah, it's
All right,
like it's like 10:50.
Are we still on the podcast?
Yeah, yes, you just have to go.
All right. Anyway, so one thing that's kind of different this season, is there's a couple different things with the scheduling. Firstly, only 14 games in the regular season, and secondly, out of division series will be, for the first time in RBC history, split home and away series. The goal of this, as we discussed in the board, it was my proposal. The goal of this was to give every team in a division the exact same strength of schedule, because you're playing the exact same teams in the exact same stadiums. What do you guys think of? Do you think that'll have an impact on the way that the league is kind of run this season?
I think it will have an impact on the way teams land this season. First game out the gate, we get a hot game such as UBS versus AJC, which I think might be, for the first game of the year, it's starting off pretty hot. But even as you go down to the other teams of the schedule, I think it, like you said, it promotes fair competition between both, because playing the same team over and over in your division over and over, sometimes one guy just ends up on top.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll make too much of a difference. I mean, there were certain stadiums that had kind of distinct advantages. I know Unionport, like a lot of people had a hard time pitching the last 2 seasons, and there were times where I would see teams practice an hour before to try to figure it out before game time or even a day before. I've seen that. So I know stadiums have certain distinct advantages. Do I think it'll affect overall how wins and losses go? I don't think so. I mean, I think other than what I just listed, I don't think there's really too much advantage in home stadiums. I mean, it makes you feel comfortable, but the fans are the same fans. There's no like distinct fan, it's a game at the end of the day. So I don't think it'll make too distinct of a difference, to be honest.
Do you guys think the fact that the schedule's only 14 games will have any sort of a difference? Do you think it'll allow teams to be a little hotter in the playoffs or anything like that?
It was 16 last season.
It's always been it's been 16 every season except for season 10, and it was 19 that season.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was long.
I think it may have a factor. Back in season 8, we saw, a hot team that I owned, RBC, pretty much went out until they lost their last two games of the season, which kind of maybe stunted their growth a little bit as they had struggled in their first playoffs games those seasons. So it may have something to do with it. I think if you can carry momentum through these short span games, I think you can do well in the playoffs. So yeah, it may have some effect.
Cool.
Yo.
Damn. Can you repeat the question again?
Will the 14-game schedule, the change of the 14 will it have an effect on the season, do you think?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think you take the first half before the All-Star break. That's your time to, I guess, recover and figure it out. I mean, I know the preseason is kind of for that, but I mean, a lot of teams, they get hot towards the end of the season. So, I mean, it's only a 2-game difference. So, yeah. Will it make too much of a difference? No, I don't think so. I like that it's 14 games, though. I don't know. Especially because we're in a school season, especially because we're in school right now, having a shorter season, I think, is a little better because it's going to be long. We're going to have days where we're trying to figure out, do we have enough players, to like play an actual game. That was like the biggest problem season 10 when we tried doing 24 games and we only did like 19. So I think it's going to be better. I don't know if it'll affect performance though.
Got it. I believe the All-Star Game Stadium has been soft released. It's kind of been approved. It appears that the majority of... Yeah, it looks like it's going to be at Suncrest Field. I'll go ahead and put that in here now. So I believe in that case, the home team will be the RL All-Stars because the Suncrest has always been the host of an RL team. But it's interesting to note that the Home Run Derby is not in the dead center of the season this year. There's 8 games before it and then only 6 games after it. So, and then one thing that I do think will have a major impact on the season is the fact that the transaction deadline is 4 games before the end of the season this season.
I like that.
I think that is a great addition to this, to the league this season. Just considering in the past we've seen a lot of interesting transactions right before the end of the season, but with only 10 games played and 4 games to go, I am willing to bet that there will be at least 5 teams out of 6 left for playoff contention. So we won't see teams selling as hard as they have in the past at the end of the season in the transactions. Another thing that I really like is the waiver wire, and I feel like the waiver wire will also have an impact on new players arriving to the league mid-season. Like we already saw, I have no clue if Steven 822 is actually going to play, but he joined the Discord earlier today. But perhaps, I think the waiver wire and the earlier transaction deadline are going to have a big impact on the season. And I think it's going to make Series 5 intensely important. Which the matchups for that series, Unionport plays NAS, Texas plays Las Vegas, and Montreal plays AJC. So those are already matchups that we're going to be looking forward to starting now, essentially. But we look forward to the Omaha tournament as well. So unless there's anything else in chat, that will be it for us here tonight. You can see our draft grades and our power rankings on the screen. But yeah, thank you all for watching the returning episode of the Spart Asch Analysis Podcast. Hopefully we will be able to return sometime soon for some more podcast content and bring on some different guests. But
I'd like to thank Lowe's for, attending today.
Yeah,
and
definitely
joining
big
us.
thank you to Ark for joining us on the stream today. Anything from you gentlemen to close out tonight?
Just for everyone that's listening, it's going to be hard to be active. I know school, but just try to help you and support your team as much as possible because, like I said earlier, this season's very much going to be dependent on not just talent, but it's going to be dependent on who actually shows up. And I believe the team who shows up the most, they're going to advance the farthest. So just support your teams as much as you can, but at the same time, enjoy your life too. That's all I got to say. Thanks for having me.
Last thing I want to say is Panthers are going to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. I'll see y'all niggas tomorrow.